Good evening. Tonight we'll spend a day in the life of a medieval midwife, a woman called upon in the darkest hours with blood on her hands and no room for error. Her world smells of damp straw, boiled herbs, and the quiet panic that comes just before a birth. There are no tools, no textbooks, just fingers, breath, and whatever strength she hasn't yet used up. Maybe quiet stories like this help you breathe a little easier. If they do, feel free to like the video and subscribe. But only if that quiet feels welcome tonight. And if you'd like, share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's a quiet comfort knowing we're all here, even from far apart. Now, lower the lights, settle in, and we'll ease our way back, slowly, into the medieval world. The air is cold against your cheeks, and your back is damp where the straw has given way to the earth below. You haven't opened your eyes yet, but you know it's still dark. The kind of dark that feels thick, like wet cloth draped over your face. You curl your toes, trying to feel warmth, but the chill reaches through your blanket like it isn't there. Somewhere nearby, something scurries. A rat, maybe, or just the old wood shifting in the damp. You don't flinch. It's too early to flinch. The pain in your hips from the hard ground tells you the night is over. Your fingers find the edge of the cloth you keep near your head, and you pull it closer to your chest. It smells like herbs, smoke, and your own sweat, and the scent is somehow grounding. You lie still for another moment, listening. The rooster hasn't crowed yet, but the silence feels different, thinner, more expectant. Morning is coming, but it hasn't arrived, and yet you're already awake. Of course you are. You never sleep properly the night before a birth. You sit up slowly, rubbing the sleep from your eyes with the heel of your palm. Your joints are stiff again. There's a small jar of lard near your mat, and you rub some into your fingers, working it between your knuckles, coaxing life back into your hands. Your breath is visible in the dimness. The fire went out hours ago, and you hadn't the energy to feed it. There's no point in starting a flame now. The sun will rise soon, and you don't need the light to get ready. The bundle you keep packed lies by the door. Clean cloths, a dull knife, a bit of twine, and some dried yarrow wrapped in old linen. You check it again anyway, even though your hands know what's in there. You always check. You roll your shoulders and stretch your legs, trying not to make noise. Your back cracks loudly, and you wince, not from pain but from habit. Everything hurts. Everything always hurts. You gave up expecting comfort years ago. Your stomach growls. You reach for the small bowl near the door and take a sip of whatever's left in it. Something between broth and water, cold and sour. It doesn't matter. The point isn't taste. The point is to keep something down, to have anything at all in you before you walk. You chew a bit of old root, just enough to wake yourself up. You spit out the bark when it gets too bitter. Your mouth tastes like metal, and the back of your throat aches from the night air. You pull your shawl tighter, stand and tie the worn leather belt around your waist. The same knot every day. Your fingers fumble once. They always do when it's cold. But the motion is second nature now. You don't look in the mirror. You haven't owned one in years. You smooth your hair back with wet fingers, patting it into place more for form than for vanity. The sky is still black outside, but the black has started to thin. The kind of thin that means someone, somewhere, is already in labor. You can feel it. Sometimes they knock, sometimes they scream, sometimes it's just a face at your window. You step outside, boots crunching the frost, and breathe in the bitter air. The village is quiet. Quieter than death, quieter than prayer. Smoke doesn't rise yet from the other cottages, and the paths are still empty. You know this stillness won't last. Soon there'll be footsteps, doors opening, chickens being loosed, cows groaning for the pail. But not yet. You enjoy these few moments, though enjoy is the wrong word. Endure might be closer. Or endure with grace. You press your fingers to your temples and murmur a prayer, not to any saint in particular, just to the morning itself, for the strength to do what must be done, for the mother, for the child, for the hands that must not tremble. You think of yesterday, of the girl who bled too long, of the father who blamed the moon, of the neighbors who crossed themselves when you passed. It's not your job to be loved. It's your job to show up. The bundle is in your hand, your boots are on your feet, and somewhere a woman is in pain. You don't know who yet, but you will. The sun hasn't risen, but your day has already begun. Your legs ache before you even start moving. The soreness is deep, not just in the muscles but in the joints, as though your bones themselves are resentful of the road you walked yesterday. The village was farther than you were told, and the path was wet and uneven, full of ruts that grabbed at your ankles and twisted your knees. You remember the feel of your own breath catching, the tightness in your chest as the hill rose steeper than it had any right to. And when you finally arrived, the mother was already screaming, the air in the room thick with the sour stench of old blood and fresh panic. You don't remember the walk back, only the weight in your hips, the mud on your skirts, and the way your hands wouldn't stop shaking. This morning, your fingers refuse to curl properly at first. You press your knuckles into your thighs and try to coax the warmth back into them, but the fire is barely more than ash. You had hoped the coals might still glow, just enough to take the edge off the damp. But they don't. Not really. There's a faint heat, like breath on skin, but it's not enough to reach your marrow. You kneel beside the hearth anyway, shielding the ashes with your body as if your presence alone might inspire them to live again. You blow gently, then harder, tasting soot in your mouth as it coats your tongue and catches in your throat. A tiny ember flares, glows red for a moment, and then vanishes. You could gather kindling, rebuild the fire, start again from nothing. But your hands are too slow, your joints too stiff, and you know you'll be called away before it ever catches. Instead, you settle for wrapping your hands in the ends of your shawl, clenching and unclenching your fists inside the cloth to bring back the blood. The nails on your thumbs are split from last week's storm. You fell hard that night, rushing through the fields to a house that had no door, only a curtain. You can still feel the bruise on your left thigh. You push your fingers against it now, as if pressure will ease the throb. It doesn't. But pain has become part of the background now, like the creaking of the beams or the smell of damp wool. Not sharp, just always there. There is no one to complain to, no one to tell you to rest, no one to offer hot water or a stool by a warmer hearth. You live alone, and that's both a necessity and a curse. If you lived with others, they'd ask questions. They'd look at your stains and your silence and start to whisper. Alone, there are no whispers, just the noise in your own head. You flex your fingers again, watching how they tremble slightly in the low light. A healer with shaking hands. It would be funny if it weren't so cruel. You remember when they were steady, not just firm, but strong, able to guide, to lift, to press life into newborn lungs. Those days feel like someone else's story now. You still have skill, but skill without strength feels like a knife without a handle. Sharp, but dangerous to hold. You reach for the cloth bundle again and press your palms into it, letting the coarse fabric scrape your skin. The scrape is good. It reminds you that you're still here, still needed, and still able, if only barely. You move to the stool near the wall and lower yourself onto it, slowly, carefully, like someone decades older than you actually are. Your knees pop, loud in the silence, and the sound makes you wince, not from the pain, but from the reminder. The cold has settled deep in your bones. No blanket helps, no bath fixes it, not that you've had a hot bath in months. You think of the stream behind the village, the one that stays icy even in summer, and how last week you had to wade through it to reach a house on the other side. Your skirts froze solid before you got back, You had to break them open at the hem just to step inside your own door. The cold lives in you now, not just in your joints but in your spine, your jaw, even your breath. You lean forward, resting your elbows on your thighs, and close your eyes for a moment. There's a low sound outside, not quite a knock, not quite a voice. But it's enough. You open your eyes again, and already your body knows it's time to go. You stand up, shoulders tight, legs unsteady, and reach for your bundle again. There's no time for warmth, no fire, no rest. Only cold bones, stiff hands, and another road waiting. The hunger isn't sharp anymore. It hasn't been for years. Now it feels like a weight, a familiar dullness in your belly that swells and fades like tides, something you register without reacting. You don't wake up ravenous, you wake up resigned. You know there's something left in the bowl by the wall. Not a meal, not really, but enough to keep you upright. You cross the room, your steps quiet on the packed earth floor, and crouch beside the little shelf where you keep what passes for food. The bowl is cold to the touch, rim chipped, the inside coated with a thin crust of congealed grain that's gone slightly sour. You stir it with your finger, breaking the skin on top, and the smell that rises is not pleasant, but it's not offensive either. Just old. It's yesterday's porridge, or maybe the day before. There's a bit of root mixed in, parsnip or turnip, it's hard to tell anymore, and something green that might have once been a herb. It's mostly mush now, soft and grey. You sit back on your heels and lift the bowl to your mouth. It takes effort to swallow. The taste is flat, like wet cloth, and the texture clings to the roof of your mouth. But you force it down, mouthful by mouthful, not for nourishment, but because the body expects something. It's more ritual than sustenance, this act of eating. A gesture toward normalcy. You don't think about vitamins or nourishment or balance. You think about whether it will sit heavy in your gut, whether it will make you cramp when you're kneeling for too long beside someone else's blood. Once, years ago, a traveling friar told you that fasting sharpens the senses, clears the mind for prayer and clarity. You had laughed then, bitterly. Hunger doesn't make you holy. It makes your hands shake when you need them still. It makes your head swim when you're tying knots in an umbilical cord. Still, you eat what's in front of you. You scrape the sides of the bowl with your fingers, collecting the last bits, and lick them clean. Waste nothing. That's the rule. Always the rule. Your teeth hurt with every chew. One of your molars cracked last winter, and now the edge catches on everything. You've grown used to favoring the other side of your mouth, but sometimes you forget, and the shock of pain feels like lightning through your jaw. You suck air through your teeth and rub your tongue along the sore place. There's nothing to be done about it. No one nearby with a steady enough hand to pull the tooth. You've seen too many mouths go rotten from a bad pull, and you'd rather bear the pain than risk an infection you can't treat. The food doesn't help. It's too soft to challenge the tooth, but too sour to soothe it. You finish what's left, then pour a splash of water from a clay jug to rinse your mouth. It's lukewarm and slightly cloudy, but cleaner than most wells offer. You let it sit in your cheeks for a moment, hoping it'll chase away the taste of spoiled grain. It doesn't. It only makes your throat clench a little, a reminder that today might be long, and food might not come again until darkness. You set the bowl aside, wipe your fingers on your apron, and rise slowly, hands braced against your knees. The fullness you feel is a lie, a temporary illusion created by habit, not satisfaction. Your stomach will remind you of that soon enough. But at least you've gone through the motions. At least you've done what your body expects. Sometimes it's the only comfort you get. A few bites of something warm or once warm, and the memory of food more than the food itself. You don't eat for pleasure anymore. You eat because it's what keeps your feet moving, your thoughts clear, your hands steady when the time comes. You glance at the door. Still no knock. Still no call. But it will come. It always does. You pick up the bowl again, swish the last drops of water around inside it, and toss them out into the dirt outside. Then you place the bowl back on the shelf, upside down this time, to keep the insects out. There's nothing else to do now but wait. And in that quiet, you feel your stomach shift again, already hungry, already hollow. The knock comes not as a surprise, but as confirmation. You felt it building all morning, in the way the wind carried strange silence through the village, in the pit of your stomach that refused to settle, in the weight behind your eyes that never quite lifted. It's not a polite knock, either. It's urgent, fast, the kind that says someone is already afraid. You're already moving before the second hit lands. Your hands reach for the bundle near the door, fingers instinctively checking for the twine, the cloth, the knife. There's no time to lace your boots again, so you tighten the wraps around your calves and shove the latch up with your shoulder. The door creaks open, letting in a gust of cold air and a man's breathless face. Pale, round, framed with damp curls. You don't remember his name, only that he came to you once before, maybe last spring, when his first child arrived in the middle of the night. That one had lived. This one. He doesn't say anything, just opens his mouth, then closes it again. You nod before he finds the words. He steps aside to let you pass, and you don't waste time with questions. If he's here, it's started. It's always the same. No one comes early, no one prepares. They wait until the groans become screams, or the blood begins to soak through the straw. Only then do they remember you exist. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders and follow him, your feet already sinking into the half-frozen muck of the path. The village hasn't woken yet, not fully. A few thin streams of smoke curl from chimneys, but the windows are dark. You keep your eyes down, watching the ground more than the road ahead, not just to avoid slipping, but because you've learned not to meet people's eyes in the morning. They look at you with unease, not hostility exactly, but the kind of wary reverence reserved for things they don't quite trust. You've heard the words they whisper. Witch, taker, bleeder. They call when they need you, but they never offer a seat by their fire or a blessing in the market. And still, you go. You always go. The man's pace quickens as you near the edge of the village, where the houses grow smaller, more crooked, as if trying to shrink away from the wind. He points toward a narrow door with peeling paint, and then steps back, not following you inside. That's common too. They bring you to the threshold, but do not cross it. Inside is woman's work. Blood, pain, cries. A place for midwives and mothers, not men. You push the door open and step into warmth and noise. The heat hits you first, thick and sour, followed by the smell. Sweat, wood smoke, something metallic. Then comes the sound. Heavy breathing, low moans, the creak of bedposts. A girl is lying on a pile of blankets near the hearth, knees bent, hands gripping the edge of a low stool turned sideways. She can't be more than 16. Her eyes flutter when she sees you, and then roll away, too lost in pain to focus. There's another woman crouched beside her, mother, sister, maybe neighbor, wringing a cloth in a basin, face pale and drawn. You don't speak. You never start with words. You kneel beside the girl and place your hand on her belly, feeling the tightness of the contraction just as it begins to fade. The skin is hot, damp. You glance between her legs. No blood yet, no crowning. There's still time. You exhale slowly, grounding yourself, and then begin. You ask the girl's name, though it doesn't matter. You ask when the pains began, how far apart they are, whether her water has broken. The other woman answers, voice trembling, and you nod, absorbing it all while unpacking your bundle. You lay out the cloths, the knife, the twine. You reach for the girl's hand, feel her fingers clamp down on yours with desperate strength. You look her in the eyes and say quietly, "You're not alone." You always say that, even when you know it isn't true. She will be alone in the pain, in the risk, in the moment the world decides whether she gets to stay in it. But for now, she has your hands, and they've come knocking for them. Not the healer, not the priest, not the men with books and oils. You. Again. Always you. The woman beside the girl leans close to your ear and whispers what you already suspect. The waters broke before dawn. You glance at the girl's face, now slick with sweat, her lips parted in short, shallow breaths. Her body shifts as another pain comes through, not strong enough to push, but sharp enough to make her gasp. You've seen enough births to know what this might mean. The waters broke too soon, or too late. Either way, it's wrong. The timing is always crucial, and when the rhythm falters, when the body moves before it's ready or refuses to move at all, things go sideways fast. You press gently on her belly again, feeling for tension, for movement, for the telltale signs that the child is responding. But there's nothing distinct yet. No reliable pattern, just confusion, hesitation, and the unspoken knowledge that this might not go well. You keep your voice calm as you ask for more details. How long since the water spilled? What color was it? Did it smell strange? The woman's answers are vague. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. It was cloudy, she thinks, a bit pink. No, maybe brown, maybe both. You nod without reacting, though your stomach tightens. Brown could mean the baby has already passed waist, a sign of distress, a warning. You don't say that aloud. Not yet. Not unless you have to. Instead, you look around the room, taking in the things that might help or hurt. The fire is too hot, making the air heavy. You ask for the door to be opened, just a crack, to bring in some air that isn't soaked in sweat and fear. You dip a cloth in the basin, wring it out, and press it to the girl's forehead. Her eyes flicker again, and this time they meet yours, wide and full of something that's more than pain. It's the knowing, the quiet, deep knowing that something isn't right. You squeeze her hand and lie to her, softly. It's early still, that's all. You're strong. It's just starting. You hate lying, but sometimes it's the only tool you have left. You reach beneath the cloths and feel the swelling again. The cervix is soft, but not open. Not enough. Not yet. And the head isn't where it should be. It floats, unengaged, high above where it should already be pressing down. This is what makes midwifery unbearable. Not the blood, not the mess, not even the accusations that come afterward when things go wrong. It's the waiting. The long, helpless waiting, knowing something's off but not having the means to fix it. There's no way to reposition a child through will alone. No herbs to bring a head down safely. No salve to open a body faster than it's ready. You've learned to watch and wait, to listen to the silence between the screams, to note the rhythm of the pains as if they're a kind of music you're meant to follow. But this one has no rhythm. The pains are scattered, inconsistent. Her body isn't sure whether it wants to open or protect itself. You mix a few crushed leaves into warm water and press the cup to her lips. She drinks with difficulty, choking once, but the bitterness will help her focus. You murmur soft instructions, when to breathe, when to push, even though you know it's too early to push. You just want her to feel like she's doing something, because the truth is she isn't in control. Neither are you. The other woman brings you a rag to wipe your hands, and you notice a dark stain on the cloth already. You fold it quickly and set it aside. No one needs to see it. No one needs to start counting the signs just yet. You place a cloth under the girl's hips and adjust her position slightly, hoping gravity might lend a hand. In your head, you start the quiet clock that all midwives keep, not one marked by hours and minutes, but by instinct and dread. If she hasn't progressed in another hour, If the head still floats, if the blood deepens in color, then you'll have to act. Or pray. Or both. You try not to think of the last girl whose waters broke early. She was 17. Her baby came feet first and never took a breath. The villagers blamed her for being weak, and you for not saving them both. You didn't argue. You never argue. You just walked home in silence and didn't eat for 2 days. That silence still lives in your bones. You feel it now, again, curling behind your ribs. This birth might end the same way, but it might not. And so you stay. You wait. Another birth, another risk, and it has already begun. You leave the house as soon as the girl starts to slip into the long, shallow breathing that signals a lull between pains. There's nothing more you can do in this moment. No spell, no salve, no technique to speed things up. What comes next depends on the child, the womb, the quiet balance between pressure and passage. You step outside, blinking at the sudden grey light, and realize that the sun has finally broken through, though only barely. The sky is smeared with clouds the color of old linen, and the wind carries the sharp smell of manure and wet earth. The ground is soft beneath your feet, each step a squelch that threatens to suck the leather from your soles. The path ahead is half obscured by puddles, some shallow, others deceptively deep, and your skirts grow heavy with mud in minutes. You adjust your pace to avoid slipping, leaning slightly forward to keep your balance. Somewhere nearby, a cow moans. A cart creaks in the distance. The village is awake now, but not welcoming. You feel the shift in the air, the way eyes follow you without kindness. People don't speak to you in the morning. They watch. From behind slats in wooden shutters, from the folds of scarves drawn too tightly over mouths. Children stop playing when you pass. Women stir their pots a little quieter. Men nod stiffly or not at all. You've grown used to the weight of their silence, though it still presses into your ribs like a too tight corset. You try not to meet their eyes. When you do, they look away quickly, as if they've seen something they'd rather forget. As if your presence reminds them that bodies fail, that babies die, that blood does not always bring joy. One man mutters something under his breath as you pass. You catch only the tail end of it, something about salt or sin. You keep walking. The dogs are worse than the men. They follow you in pairs, sniffing at your bundle, your boots, your hem. One growls low in its throat, tail stiff. You don't flinch. The last time you did, it only made them bolder. Better to walk through them like smoke. Better to pretend you're made of something less edible. A cart rattles past, pulled by a donkey too small for the load it carries. The driver doesn't make room for you, and your shoulder brushes the edge of a wheel as you step aside into thicker mud. The splash reaches your shin, soaking through the wool. You don't look back. Ahead, 2 women stand outside a low house, their arms crossed, heads bent together in conversation. One glances up as you approach and makes a quick sign across her chest. The other stares, unblinking until you pass. You wonder briefly if they've heard, if they know where you're going. News travels faster than feet in a place like this. A difficult birth is a village event, not something to attend, but something to sense, like a storm on the horizon. You round the bend near the well and nearly lose your footing on a patch of slick moss. Your heart jumps. You grab the nearest post for balance and steady yourself. No one comes to help, not even the boy drawing water just 10 paces away. He watches you with a blank face, one hand on the rope, the other still clutching the bucket. He doesn't speak. You move on. By the time you reach the house, your knees ache from the uneven path, and your fingers sting from the cold where they've gripped the bundle too tight. The threshold is low, and the door is half open. You step inside without knocking. The air changes instantly, warmer, thicker, and filled with the raw scent of labor. The girl lies on a pallet in the corner, her face pale, her breath shallow. Her mother sits beside her, pressing a cloth to her forehead and murmuring something too soft to hear. You set down your bundle and kneel again, wiping your hands on a clean cloth before reaching for the girl's belly. The contractions have slowed. The tension is there, but weak, unfocused. You press gently, then shift your hand to check for position. Still no progress. The child hasn't descended. You glance up, and the mother's eyes meet yours, tired, searching, already asking what you haven't said. You nod slightly. Another birth? Another risk? And before anything else happens, you'll have to walk that path again, out into the mud, past the dogs and whispers, because there's something you left behind. A tool, a cloth, or maybe just a moment of quiet before what's coming next. Either way, the road is waiting, and it's never clean. He's already waiting when you arrive. A man not quite old, but made older by the way he stands. One hand grips the doorframe, the other rings his cap like it's the only thing anchoring him to the ground. He doesn't speak when he sees you. He just nods, once, tight, jaw clenched hard enough to shake the skin in his cheeks. His eyes dart past you, like he's hoping someone else might be following. Someone more certain, more holy, someone who can promise an outcome you can't. You meet his gaze only briefly, then step past him into the narrow doorway. The heat hits first, then the stink. Not the smell of blood, not yet, but the smell of panic. Thick, sour, wet, fear, sweat, old wool, damp wood. It clings to the walls and pools in the corners. The man stays outside, his shadow lingering just long enough to make you feel watched. Then he disappears from view. That's how it goes. They bring you to the threshold, and then you're alone. It's not your house, but it might as well be. You're the one who will live in it for hours now, with its noises, its smells, its ghosts. The room is small and badly lit. One candle flickers near the hearth, barely holding against the stale air. A fire smolders low, more smoke than flame, sending greasy ribbons into the rafters. On a pallet near the far wall, she lies curled, knees pulled toward her belly, her hands fisted in the folds of a blanket that's already damp. She doesn't look up when you enter. She might not even know you're here yet. Her lips are parted, dry and cracked. Her breathing is uneven, not the regular rhythm of labor, but something more anxious, more shallow. You recognize it instantly. The kind of breathing that belongs to a body trying to keep its panic quiet. You move slowly, lowering yourself beside her with practiced care. Her skin is slick with sweat. Her hair is plastered to her forehead, and her shift is twisted beneath her, clinging to her thighs. You reach out and touch her shoulder, gently, to let her know you're there. She flinches. Not from the pain. From everything else. From you, from the room. From the fact that this is happening. You speak her name, and it takes her a moment to answer. When she finally does, her voice is raw, rasped down to almost nothing. You ask when the pain started. She says yesterday, maybe longer. You ask about the blood. She shakes her head, then nods. She doesn't know. She can't remember. You glance toward a basin in the corner. The cloth inside is stained dark brown. Not fresh, not recent. You press your hand to her belly, feeling the tension there, the resistance. The womb is hard, too hard. Not just contracting, straining. You close your eyes and breathe through your nose, steadying yourself. You've seen this before. A labor that began in secret, dragged out too long, hidden until the body couldn't take it anymore. Now it's your burden. You ask her to shift her legs. She tries, but her strength fails halfway. You help her, guiding her gently, trying not to let her see the worry rising in your chest. You don't ask where the other women are. There are none. Only the father outside, pacing or praying or pretending he's elsewhere. You reach for your bundle, unwrapping it quickly, your fingers already working through the steps without conscious thought. You set the cloths in place, light another candle, roll back your sleeves. Everything you need is here. Everything that can help, and nothing that guarantees anything. You lean closer and whisper that she is safe now, that you'll stay, that you know what to do. You lie again. Because it's not about safety, it's about chance. The smell of the room is unbearable now. Not just fear, but something older, something sick. The air carries the copper tang of something starting to go wrong. You press your hands to her belly again, firmer this time. Still no movement, no shifting. You glance toward the wall where your shadow stretches long and broken, flickering with the flame. Another birth, another risk, another house where someone might not make it out. You feel the heat of the fire at your back and the cold edge of dread in your chest. And you begin. Because this is what they called you for, not to promise life. Just to face it, even when the house stinks of fear, especially then. Your hands move with care, but there's no room for hesitation. The girl lies still, one arm thrown across her forehead, the other clenched into the blanket at her side. Her knees tremble as another pain rolls through her, shallow and unconvincing, a wave that crashes before it gathers strength. You murmur soft sounds, not words, as you press your palms gently across her abdomen, feeling for the shape that should be there. The round curve of a skull low in the pelvis, the firm alignment of limbs preparing to descend. But the shape is wrong. You press again, slower this time, mapping the contours beneath the skin like a blind woman reading a page by touch. There's no head where the head should be. Instead, you feel a broad mass, high near her ribs, firm and wide and unmoving. The child hasn't turned, or turned the wrong way. It's not engaged, not ready. You feel your throat tighten, and for a moment you hold your breath, as if exhaling might make it true. But nothing changes. It's a breach, or transverse, or worse, something twisted, something that can't pass. You sit back on your heels and wipe your forehead with the edge of your sleeve. Though it's not sweat that troubles you. It's calculation. If the child is breech, there's a narrow path forward. Dangerous, yes, but not impossible. If it's sideways, twisted, caught, there may be no path at all. You look at the girl again. Really look at her. She's young. Too young. Her hips are narrow, her strength already spent. And the labor hasn't even truly begun. You consider the risks, the tools in your bundle, the herbs you carry that might soften the body but won't shift a stubborn baby into place. You think of the hands you've held during births like this. Cold, desperate hands that clutched at you as the life left their limbs. You blink slowly and press your lips together, trying to force the memory back. This girl is not those girls. Not yet. Not if you're careful. Not if her body responds. Not if luck, or something close to it, is on your side. Still, you don't tell her what you've found. Not now. You don't speak fear aloud until you have no other choice. You reach again, more firmly this time, and press your fingertips deeper. You try to coax the child into motion, to see if it will respond to touch, to warmth, to pressure. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the baby shifts, slowly, awkwardly, into something closer to the right position. You press and wait. Nothing. The belly stays taut and unyielding. You whisper a quiet word, not a prayer exactly, but something like one, and glance toward the basin of water cooling near the hearth. You dip your cloth in it, wring it out, and lay it across the girl's belly, hoping the warmth might help. She flinches but doesn't resist. She's barely there anymore, a body half sunk into pain, hovering between awareness and retreat. You call her name softly and ask her to breathe. She tries. Her breath rattles in her chest like an old bellows. You count silently, your fingers never leaving her skin. Time doesn't move normally in rooms like this. Each moment stretches until it snaps. You press again. Still wrong. Still too high. Still no descent. You exhale slowly through your nose and close your eyes. You've seen births like this stretch for hours, some even longer. Long enough for day to turn to night and back again. Long enough for hope to drain from the room, one slow drop at a time. The worst part isn't the pain, or the mess, or even the blood. It's the waiting, the stillness between contractions, the knowledge that nothing is moving forward, that something inside her is resisting the very thing that must happen. You rise and step to your bundle, pulling out a strip of cloth and a pinch of powder, crushed herb meant to relax the muscles, slow the panic, maybe convince the womb to soften its grip. It's a small comfort, but it's all you have. You mix it into warm water and lift it to her lips. She drinks without question. That frightens you more than resistance would. You glance toward the door, half expecting the father to be standing there again. He isn't. He's keeping his distance. Good. You need time. Time to try again. Time to wait. Time to decide. But the truth is simple. The child is not in position. And if it doesn't turn, you both know what that means, even if you never say it. The first scream comes just before the next wave hits her. Long, sharp, ragged at the end like cloth tearing. It's not the kind of scream you fear. It's the kind you recognize, even welcome. A scream like that means she's still fighting, that her body hasn't given up, that the pain is moving through her rather than crushing her. You glance up from your place at her side, the sound echoing off the low rafters, bouncing between the cracked walls. It fills the room, makes the candle flicker, startles a bird from the thatch above. The mother flinches, covering her mouth with her hand, as if embarrassed by her daughter's noise. But you don't move. You don't hush her. Let her scream. The worst is when they stop. You press your palm to the girl's belly again. Feel the tension draw tight beneath the skin like a drumhead stretched too far. Another contraction, but no progress. You wipe her forehead with a damp cloth, gently, keeping your other hand firm on her shoulder. She opens her mouth again. Another cry, this one shorter, more guttural. Still good, still something you can work with. The pattern changes without warning. One moment she's thrashing, her fists grabbing at the air, her back arching against the pallet, and the next, stillness. No scream, no breath, just her eyes, wide and fixed on the ceiling. You call her name, softly at first, then again louder. Nothing. Her chest moves, barely. Her fingers twitch, but she's stopped making sound, not even a moan. The silence descends thick and fast, heavier than the scream ever was. You feel it press against your skin, the hair on your arms rising. You glance at the mother, whose lips are moving now in a whisper. A prayer, a bargain with someone she probably stopped believing in years ago. You reach for the girl's hand and find it limp, not cold, but loose. The sweat on her skin is cold now, the shivers beneath the flesh a new warning. You call her name again and tap her cheek with your fingertips. Nothing sharp, nothing urgent, just enough to pull her back. But she doesn't blink, doesn't flinch. You know this silence. You've met it before. It's not peace, it's not quiet. It's the pause before something breaks. You don't speak the fear aloud. Not yet. You wet the cloth again and press it to her lips. She swallows. Barely. That's something. You lower your voice and speak to her steadily, calling her back with stories of breath and heat and strength, even as your own hands begin to tremble. The mother clutches a handful of rosary beads, muttering louder now. You want to tell her to hush, but the words die in your throat. Everyone needs something to hold. Even lies. The girl shifts slightly, then lets out a low grunt, not quite a scream, not quite a moan. It's enough. You whisper again. That's it. Stay with me. You apply gentle pressure to her belly, urging the child down, coaxing the womb to do what it must. The silence doesn't vanish, but it lessens. She grimaces. Her fingers curl weakly. Another sound slips past her lips, high, hoarse, half-born. You exhale for the first time in minutes. Not because things are better, but because they're not worse. Not yet. She's still here, still reachable. You lean closer and whisper her name again, softer this time, like a secret. Her eyes flick toward you, slow, uncertain. You nod and squeeze her hand. She doesn't squeeze back, but she doesn't pull away either. You look down and see her legs shifting, a slow, strained attempt to brace for the next pain. You press one hand to her belly and the other beneath the cloth, checking again for movement, for pressure, for change. Still wrong. Still high. But the womb is working again. That's all you can ask. You reach for the herbs, crush another pinch between your fingers, mix it with warm water, and hold it to her lips once more. She drinks. This time, no choking, no flinching. Just a slow tilt of her head as she takes it in. You sit back on your heels, waiting, listening. Not for peace, not for the quiet, but for the return of sound. The raw, primal sound of pain that means the body still believes it has a chance. You'd take 10 screams over one silence because you know how it starts. And more than once you've seen how it ends. They all look to you now. The mother kneeling by the fire, her fingers white around the cloth she's been wringing for the last hour. The man who finally stepped inside, shoulders hunched and useless near the doorway, trying not to meet your eyes. Even the girl, half conscious and fading, turns her face toward the movement of your hands like some small creature seeking warmth. You feel their attention not as comfort, but as weight. It rests on your shoulders, presses into the joints of your fingers, fills the narrow room like smoke. No one says it out loud, but it's there in every glance, every breath. It's up to you now. And your hands, these hands, are all that stands between the child and the grave. You move slowly, carefully because you have to, not because you know what you're doing. That's the thing they never understand. The hands know the work, but they never hold certainty. You've done this 100 times. You've brought children into this world and buried them hours later. You've stopped bleeding, and you've watched it flow, unstoppable. There is no mastery. There is only endurance. You kneel again beside the girl, your knees sinking deeper into the straw with each hour that passes. Your fingers, cracked and stained, move like they've always moved, gentle, deliberate, tracing the swollen curve of her belly, dipping beneath the cloths to check what must be checked. But inside your chest, your heart stutters with every movement. The child hasn't turned. Not fully, not enough. You feel the broad plane of a shoulder, the shifting edge of a rib cage where a head should be pressing. You know what that means. You know the stories of how these births end. You know what the others will say if the girl bleeds out, if the child is born still, if nothing comes of all this effort but silence. And still, they watch. Because there's no one else. No priest, no barber surgeon, no wise woman in the next village. Just you, with your fingers, your cloths, your muttered prayers that are not quite prayers. You glance at the mother and see the truth in her face, that awful, aching mix of hope and accusation. You look down again. You say nothing. What could you possibly say? You tell your hands to keep moving. They know what to do, even if your mind is screaming. You press gently, trying again to guide the child's body downward, shifting the pressure with each breath, coaxing motion where there's still resistance. You murmur to the girl, words low and steady, letting her hear the rhythm of your voice, even if the meaning is lost to her now. You ask her to breathe with you. You count aloud. You press warm cloths to her belly. You place her legs differently, hoping the change in angle might help. You reach into your bundle for the oil, warming it between your palms before using it. Everything is soft. Nothing is certain. And still they watch. Your hands are their only hope, and they don't even know what they're hoping for. A safe birth, a breathing child, a mother who doesn't bleed out before morning. You don't promise any of that. You never promise. You just work. You swallow your fear like salt and focus on what's in front of you. Skin, bone, breath, pressure. Sometimes you wonder what would happen if you stood up and walked away. Not out of cruelty, just because you know how little control you actually have. If you left now, would they find someone else? Would the girl survive the night with her mother's hands alone? Would the child twist itself free by some miracle of nature? Or would everything end in that red, gurgling way you've seen too many times before? But you never leave. You stay. Because that's what they've asked of you. Not to save. Just to stay. Just to be the one who keeps her hand steady when no one else can. You watch the girl's face as another wave passes through her, lips parted, eyes wide, a cry caught somewhere in her throat. You press again, angle your palms differently and think, this might be the time it works, or the time it all falls apart. You don't know. You never know. But your hands keep moving anyway, because that's what they do, even when you're not sure, especially then. Because in this room, in this moment, they are the only hope anyone has left. The warmth seeps into your knees slowly, almost gently, like bath water rising around your legs. For a moment, you welcome it. After hours crouched on the hard-packed floor, the heat is a strange relief, a softness that pushes back against the ache in your joints. But then the smell hits, not the sour tang of sweat or the breath of the hearth's fading coals, but something sharper, coppery, unmistakable. You look down, not quickly, not with panic, but with that dull inevitability you've learned to carry. The cloth beneath you is wet, darker now than it was, and already beginning to stick to the skin beneath your skirts. You shift slightly, fingers digging into the straw at your side for balance, and the warmth follows. Not fresh from the fire, not body heat from the girl beside you. It's blood. Slow at first, then steady. And it's not yours. You know what this means. You've felt this before, the change in temperature, the silent flood that tells you something has opened, torn, given way inside her. The body doesn't scream when it starts, it just lets go. You press your hand against her belly, harder now, and feel the tension there. Not contraction, not movement, just a kind of thick resistance, like the skin is full of waterlogged cloth. She's stopped moaning. Her breath comes in shallow puffs, lips pale, eyelids fluttering. You call her name and she doesn't answer. The mother leans closer, notices the shift in your expression, and finally looks where you're looking. Her mouth opens but nothing comes out. You move fast now, or as fast as your sore knees and stiff fingers will allow. You reach for the cleanest cloth, fold it quickly, press it between the girl's legs with practiced force. It's not enough. Blood seeps through almost instantly. You reach for another, then another. Soon the bundle that once promised comfort now lies scattered and soaked, useless. The bleeding is not slowing. You whisper a word under your breath, a name, a shape of a prayer, something you don't even believe in, and press harder. The girl whimpers once, then falls silent again. You glance at the father. His knuckles are white on the doorframe. The warmth spreads further under you. You can feel it soaking into the straw, curling around your ankles, thickening the air. The fire sputters. The candle gutters. Your fingers are slick now, and you wipe them on your apron without thinking. It doesn't help. Everything is slick. Everything smells like iron. You reach into your pouch for the dried root, the one they say slows bleeding. and chew it quickly before spitting it into a scrap of cloth and folding it into her mouth. Her jaw is slack, but she swallows. Maybe. You don't know. You press again. One hand now, the other fumbling for the cord, the twine, anything to tie, to bind, to close. But there's nothing to tie yet. The child hasn't come. The womb is emptying too early. The blood isn't waiting. You press with your full weight now, not caring if it bruises her, not caring if it hurts. Pain is better than this. Pain means something's still working. The silence in the room grows thicker, wrapped around the gurgle of liquid on straw, the ragged breath of the mother, your own heartbeat hammering in your ears. You feel something shift inside her. Not the baby. Not yet. But something gives, a motion like slipping, like unraveling. Her head tilts, her lips part. You lower yourself further, your face close to hers, and whisper her name again. Firmer now, almost angry. She doesn't blink. You call her mother. She doesn't answer. You press your hand harder into the cloth between her legs, and your palm sinks into heat. The blood has soaked through the last layer. It's warm. Too warm. The candle beside you flares once more, then settles into a faint glow. You don't look away. You can't. Not now. You feel her pulse in your other hand. Faint, fluttering. Like a bird beating against the inside of her skin. You stay there, kneeling in the warmth, in the blood, your hands shaking but unmoving, because if you stop pressing, you know what will happen. And maybe it will happen anyway. Maybe nothing you do will stop what's already begun. But this is what midwifery means. Not ceremony, not celebration. Just you, on your knees, soaked to the bone, trying to hold life in with your hands, long after the body has started to let it go. The child slips out into your hands with a strange, wet weight, heavier than you expected, slick with blood and something else, something thick and silent. There is no cry, no gasp, just the sound of liquid meeting straw and the faint rustle of cloth as the girl exhales, too weak to know what has just happened. You lower your eyes and look. He is whole. He is warm. And he is blue. Not the red-violet flush of birth, but the deep, slow blue of stillness. His limbs hang loose, not curled or flexed. His chest does not rise. You say nothing at first. Your hands move on their own, lifting him, turning him gently, clearing the mouth and nose with your little finger. You hold him close to your ear. No breath, no cry, no sound at all. You whisper something, not a name, not a prayer, just a sound, a calling, and begin. Your thumb strokes his back in small, firm circles. Your fingers rub the soles of his feet. You place your palm against his chest and wait. Nothing. The mother doesn't speak. She doesn't have to. You can feel her gaze, heavy as stone, fixed on your back. The girl, if she's still awake, cannot see. Her head is turned towards the wall, her hair plastered to her cheek with sweat. You whisper again, now louder, your voice shaking. You hold him higher and give a gentle shake. Not rough, not panicked, but just enough to try and pull breath from wherever it's hiding. You've seen this before. You've seen babies emerge blue and silent, only to wail minutes later. But this one, his skin stays cold where it shouldn't. You place him on the cloth beside the fire, close but not too close, and rub him hard now, his back, his chest, the pads of his feet. You reach for the salt, coarse, rough, kept in your pouch for this moment. You rub it between your palms and press it along his spine, his ribs, the base of his skull. Still nothing. No flicker, no twitch, no resistance. His body is soft in the wrong way. Not limp from rest. Limp from absence. You blow gently into his nose, then his mouth. You tap his heel. The silence in the room sharpens. The mother steps forward. You feel her shadow at your side, but don't turn. You mutter again and again, your voice low and quick, like you're speaking to something under the skin, some hidden force that only you can reach. You rub harder. You turn him on his side. You shake his shoulder. You blow again. A wet gurgle rises in his throat, but not breath, just fluid. You tip his head, press your finger against the roof of his mouth, then back to the chest. Your hands begin to ache. You don't stop. 1 minute, 2. You don't count them aloud, but your body knows the rhythm. He's still blue. A dull grey blue now, settling around the lips and fingers. You rub harder, salt stinging your cracked hands, and press your forehead briefly to his. You whisper, "Come on." It's not a plea. It's a command. You say it again, and again, and again. But the air remains still. The only sounds are the mother's breath, the fire's hiss, the faint, wet sounds of your own hands on skin, and the absence. That enormous absence. You don't stop. Not yet. Even when you know, even when the part of you that knows too much starts to go quiet, your hands keep moving. You wrap him in warm cloth, rub again, lift and turn and rub again. Your voice gets smaller until you're just mouthing the words. Come on, please, just a breath. 1, anything. The girl on the pallet groans softly, a thread of sound from a place far away. You glance up. She's still here, somehow. You look back at the child. He doesn't move, doesn't gasp, doesn't cry. You lay him down on the softest rag you can find, just beside the fire, and keep your hand on his belly. It doesn't rise. You wait. 1 breath. That's all it takes to shift a room from mourning to joy. But it doesn't come. You know what this means. You've known since the moment you caught him. But knowing isn't the same as stopping. Your hands are tired now. Your voice is gone. Your knees ache, soaked through with someone else's blood. And the baby lies there, still and blue and silent. The room stops moving. Not gradually, not with warning. It simply halts, as if time itself has slipped and forgotten to resume. No one speaks. No one breathes. You kneel beside the fire with the child wrapped in your hands, your palms still sticky with salt and blood and effort. He lies motionless, eyes shut, mouth open in a way that should promise sound but gives nothing. Not even a whisper. You don't realize you've stopped breathing until your chest begins to burn. Still you hold it. Holding your breath feels like holding the moment still, as if movement might shatter the thin veil that keeps you on this side of grief. Behind you, the mother stands motionless, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes fixed on the floor, not daring to look up. The girl on the pallet makes no sound. Her body rises slightly with each slow breath, but she doesn't speak, doesn't stir, doesn't ask. Maybe she knows. Maybe she's slipped far enough into the haze of pain and blood loss that she's already elsewhere. Or maybe she's waiting, like you are, afraid to name what hasn't yet become real. The child's skin is cooling now, the deep blue dulling to something grayer, something that creeps along his limbs like dusk creeping into a room with no candles. You press 2 fingers gently to the side of his neck, knowing you won't find what you're looking for, but trying anyway. You think you feel a flutter? Or maybe it's your own pulse hammering too close to the surface. Your ears are ringing. Your hands begin to tremble in that slow, delayed way that always follows moments too full of doing. You press them into your lap, into the blood-soaked cloth, trying to ground yourself. The silence stretches. The fire crackles once, sending up a small burst of sparks, but even that sound feels far away, like it doesn't belong here. You glance toward the girl and watch the soft rise and fall of her chest. Still alive. Still with you. But for how long? You don't know how much blood she's lost. You don't know if what's inside her now will keep her. You don't know anything, except that the child in your lap still hasn't taken his first breath, and you don't know if he ever will. You look down again. You wait. You count. Not aloud, not even clearly, but in that old way you were taught, by breath, by pulse, by time between firewood shifts. Nothing changes. The moment stretches so long you start to feel it in your spine, like your body is sinking into the floor, being folded into the straw and silence. You begin to imagine strange things. A sound that wasn't there. A flicker of movement that didn't happen. You blink and look again. No breath, no movement, just the same soft weight, the same cooling skin, the same stillness that wraps around the room like a wet cloth. You want to scream, but you don't. That's not your role. You want to cry, but you can't. There's no space for that. You want to run, but your knees are locked, your legs forgotten beneath you, so you stay, and you wait for something to change, for someone to speak, for anything to crack this silence open. The girl's fingers twitch once, barely. You turn your head, thinking maybe it's a sign, but it's not. She's slipping too, and you still don't know which life to reach for. In this moment, this one endless moment, you feel time stop respecting its shape. Seconds lose their rhythm. The world forgets how to continue. All you can do is keep still, your breath shallow, your hands open, your eyes burning with the need to blink. And in that quiet, everything weighs more. The dead weight of the child, the hovering edge of the mother's fear, the unfinished gasp in the girl's throat. The fire pops again. Still no one moves. Still no one speaks. The moment becomes a wound, not deep, but wide, a rupture that nothing knows how to close. And then, with nothing left to do, you lower your head. Not in prayer, not in grief, just in pause, because the moment is still here, and it hasn't let go. Not yet, not entirely. It comes so small you almost miss it, a thin, high-pitched squeak, more breath than voice, like the sound a bird makes when dreaming in its nest. Your hands freeze, your spine tightens. You lean forward, not breathing, not thinking, just watching. And then it comes again. Not louder, not clearer, just again. The child's mouth opens wider this time, and his chest jerks with effort, like a bellows fighting against rust. A stuttered wheeze follows, wet and raw. But it's there. Sound. You blink. You feel your mouth open slightly, a reflex, as if your own breath had been caught in your throat for too long and now can't find its way out. You look down and see his lips trembling. His eyes don't open, but his fingers curl, barely, but enough to call it life. The mother behind you gasps, so softly it sounds like part of the fire. The girl on the bed lets out a long breath, not because she understands, but because something in her body finally lets go. And you do not move. You do not sob. You do not shake. But your chest caves inward just slightly, and your eyes sting. You press the child against your chest, gently but firmly, skin to skin, the way you were taught by someone who learned by doing, not from books. You can feel the faintest beat beneath your fingers now, thready and uneven, but present. The warmth hasn't come back yet, but it will. If the lungs are working, the rest can follow. You rock slightly, back and forth, as if soothing both him and yourself. Your breath returns slowly, shakily, in little pieces. You don't cry. Not really. But something loosens inside, a pressure, a knot, a scream that had curled itself around your lungs. And in its place, there is space again. The room doesn't brighten, but it stops closing in. You let out a sound, almost a laugh, almost a sob, but it stays behind your lips. This is what relief looks like now. One tiny cry, one shift of muscle, one nearly missed breath. You feel the salt still crusted on your palms. You feel your knees aching in the blood-soaked straw. You feel the weight of him change in your arms. Not heavier, but different. Alive. The mother is crying now, though she does it quietly. The kind of weeping that comes from the chest more than the face. She kneels beside you, not touching, just near. You nod once, without turning. There's nothing to say. You adjust the cloth around the child's body, tucking it close to keep the warmth in. His skin is still blotchy, still tinged at the edges with that awful bluish grey, but there's colour returning, bit by bit, like a sunrise beneath the storm. You place 2 fingers under his chin, lifting gently, clearing the airway again, just in case. He coughs once, a soft, bubbling thing that sounds like it hurts, and then whimpers again, just enough to remind you he's still trying. The girl on the bed doesn't speak. Her eyes are closed, lashes stuck together with sweat, but her hand moves, barely lifting from the blanket. You reach out and place the child into the crook of her arm, guiding him there slowly, as if the motion itself might undo the fragile peace that has settled over the room. He doesn't latch. He doesn't need to yet. Right now, all that matters is breath. He curls slightly against her side, skin to skin, both of them slick and still half between worlds. You sit back, finally, and press your hands into your lap, staring at the fire without really seeing it. You can't stop shaking. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your breath catch and hold. And there, in the space behind your ribs, something gives. A short, silent cry you'll never let out. Not here, not in front of them, but it's there, a tremble, a wave, a softness, and it leaves you raw. You open your eyes again and look at the baby. He stirs, he snuffles, he breathes, and you don't care that the room still stinks of blood and fear, that your knees are soaked through, that there's more to do, much more. For now, there was a sound, and that is enough. The child is quiet now, nestled against his mother's bare chest, his breath shallow but steady, his skin mottled but warming. His tiny body twitches with every exhale, as if the memory of not breathing still clings to his lungs. You crouch nearby, watching, listening, waiting for any sign that something might shift again, for better or worse. But for now, he stays. He breathes. The girl's eyes are half-lidded, her mouth parted, her face pale with the greyness of blood loss, exhaustion, and something else. The long descent into shock. You reach for the cloths again, gently lifting her shift to assess the bleeding. Still slow, still manageable. You press a clean rag between her legs and murmur something soft, not words of comfort. You've learned how hollow they ring. But something to fill the space between what just happened and what must happen next. Because it isn't over. Not yet. Not even close. The child is born. But the body is still open, and something else still has to come. You press your hand lightly against her abdomen and feel the familiar texture, loose, doughy, but not yet relaxed. The womb is still occupied. You shift the cloths again and wait. And then, slowly, with a wet, warm weight, the afterbirth begins to slide free. It comes not with ceremony, but with a softness that almost feels cruel. After everything, this last thing should matter more, but it never does. You catch it in the old linen sheet you laid down earlier, noting the color, the completeness, the shape. The cord slackens. The blood beneath it darkens. It's done. Or it should be. You tie the cord with the scrap of twine you'd prepared hours ago. Was it hours? It feels like days. And cut it close, folding the edge of the blanket back over the child's legs. You place the afterbirth in a bowl and cover it with another cloth. Later, someone will bury it in the yard, or burn it, or throw it into the stream. You won't be the one to decide. That part of the ritual never belonged to you. Your job ends with the bleeding. Or that's what they think. But the bleeding hasn't quite stopped. You press again, this time with more pressure, and feel the womb contract beneath your palm. A good sign, if a painful one. The girl whimpers, her head turning to the side, her lips dry and cracked. You wet a cloth and hold it to her mouth. She sucks at it weakly but doesn't open her eyes. Her pulse is faster than it should be. You add another layer of cloth between her legs and change the one beneath her hips. The straw below is soaked through. You press again, and she lets out a sound that's almost a sob. Her hand still rests lightly against the child's back, but her fingers don't move. You glance at the mother, who stands frozen, her hands clenched in her apron. She hasn't spoken since the cry. You nod to her and gesture toward the pot near the hearth. She moves slowly, as if waking from a long dream. She ladles out water, warm but not hot, and brings it to you. You soak another cloth and begin to clean the girl's legs, her thighs, the mess that lingers after even the best births. This one was not the best. The bleeding begins to slow. The womb firms up beneath your hand. The girl's breathing finds a steadier rhythm, and the child, exhausted, dozes against her. You lean back, pressing your sore palms into the small of your back, and exhale. Not relief, not yet, but a kind of release. You did your part. The worst is over. Probably, maybe. You let yourself believe it just for a moment. But your body knows better. It holds the tension like a memory, muscles still coiled, ready to move again. You've seen too many women go cold hours later. Too many cries turn quiet again. Afterbirth is not just a word for the flesh that follows a child. It's a time, a state, a space between. And now, in this strange, echoing silence, that's where you all are. Not at the end, but in the aftershock, where everyone waits to see what the body will decide, whether it will hold on or let go, whether the bleeding will stop, whether the breath will last, whether what just began will continue. All you can do is stay, and listen, and keep your hands ready, even now. Because done doesn't mean safe. It never has. You dip your hands into the basin slowly, as if expecting the water to resist you. It's warm, barely, but already darkening with blood. The surface cloudy from cloth wrung out too many times. Your fingers sink beneath it, and for a moment you don't move. The heat is almost too much after hours spent in cold air and colder fear. You flex each joint, letting the liquid seep into every crease, every split along your skin. The blood is not just on your hands. It's under your nails, in the cracks around your knuckles, soaked deep into the lines of your palms. You rub them slowly, methodically, as if it's a ritual rather than a necessity. And in some ways, it is. This part always comes. This attempt to wash it away. Not just the blood, but the tension, the pressure, the weight of hands that were asked to do too much. You pick up the bar of lye soap, thin and cracked, and scrub harder, pressing it against your palms until it burns. The water turns darker. The smell rises with the steam. You don't look up. You wring out the first cloth and begin on the second. This one was under her hips, stiff with dried blood and something thicker. You soak it, press it down into the basin, watch as the water blooms red around it. The stain doesn't lift. Not really. Just fades at the edges, leaving behind a brownish memory that clings to the fibers like smoke to walls. You rub it against itself, fold and twist and rub again. You know it won't come clean. Not fully. But there's no other cloth like it. No other one this soft, this thin, this trusted. You've used it for years. For women who lived. For children who didn't. For moments like this, half saved, half lost. You think about throwing it away every time, and every time you rinse it, hang it and fold it again. Today will be no different. You press it into the basin once more and scrub until your wrists ache. The blood smears, the water cools, your fingers go pale. Still, the smell lingers. Not just blood, something older. The scent of pain, of torn flesh, of breath held too long. You splash water on your face next, rubbing along the bridge of your nose, across your temples, behind your ears. The skin there is flushed, raw from salt and heat and strain. The cloth is too rough, but you don't stop. You scrub hard enough to leave red streaks. You rinse your mouth too, not because there's blood in it, but because you feel like there is. You spit into the ashes beside the hearth and sit back on your heels, letting the cloth drop into the basin with a wet slap. You close your eyes and breathe in through your nose, slowly, carefully. It's still there. That smell. That thick, clinging blend of iron and salt and smoke. You've carried it before. You've slept with it in your hair. It will be with you through the walk home, through the creak of your bed, through whatever food you try to swallow later. You know how it works. It doesn't fade until it chooses to. No soap can fight it. No cloth can lift it. You wipe your hands one last time and let them rest on your knees. The skin is pink and raw, but the scent is still there, stubborn, deep. The girl sleeps now, or rests, or floats. It's hard to tell. Her breath is steady, but her color hasn't returned. The child sleeps too, curled like a bean against her chest, barely a shape beneath the folds of cloth. The mother stands nearby, still watching, still quiet. You glance at her. She doesn't speak. You don't expect her to. You nod once, not permission, not farewell, just acknowledgement. You gather your things slowly, folding each rag, wiping your tools, tucking them away. The cloths are damp, the herbs nearly spent. You press the edge of your shawl to your temple, trying to will the ache away. You look around the room one last time. The blood-dark straw, the flickering fire, the cold bowl on the hearth. You'll leave soon? You have to, but not yet. Not until your hands stop shaking. Not until your breath feels like your own again. You've done what you could, you've cleaned what you can, but the rest, the part that lingers in your skin, your nose, the pit of your stomach, that stays. At least until night. At least until sleep. Maybe longer. Always longer. They don't speak at first. The girl is still unconscious or close to it. Her face turned to the wall, the child curled quiet and blinking against her chest. The mother busies herself with the rags, folding them, smoothing them, trying to give her hand something to do. You sit near the hearth, elbows on your knees, the heat biting gently at your shins through the fabric. No one looks at you. Not really, the work is done. The bleeding has slowed. The baby lives. And now the moment arrives that always comes, the one that feels too loud even when no one says a word. You clear your throat gently, not asking, not reminding, just making the sound of someone ready to leave. The mother glances at you for a flicker of a second, then drops her eyes again. You don't blame her. You've seen this hesitation before. Gratitude turns quickly into discomfort when there's nothing to give. They know what your hands have done, but knowing doesn't conjure coin. The father finally steps inside. His face is drawn, grey with exhaustion and something more brittle. He walks over to the girl, places a hand on her forehead, then stands silently beside her, as if that gesture alone might count for something. Then he turns to you. Not abruptly, not unkindly, but with that same awkward weight you've seen in so many men, the weight of not knowing what they owe you, and not knowing what they have. You hold his gaze and say nothing. You've learned not to speak first. It makes them feel cornered. He reaches into his coat and pulls out a small cloth bundle. He unfolds it carefully, layer by layer, like it might contain something delicate or shameful. Inside is half a loaf of coarse bread, still slightly warm, a heel already missing. He holds it out to you without meeting your eyes. You take it. Not with grace. Not with reluctance. Just with your usual quiet. You tuck it into your bag with the same hands that caught the child. They smell of lye and old blood. You don't wipe them again. Sometimes you get cheese, sometimes dried apples. Once someone gave you a spool of rough thread and an old comb. That felt almost generous. Other times it's just a nod. Or worse, the promise. The mother speaks now, almost in a whisper. Next time, we'll give you more. She means it. Maybe. But there might not be a next time. Not for her, not for the girl, not for the child, not for you. You nod. You always do. Not to agree. Just to end it. The father follows you to the door and opens it for you. The light outside is harsh now. Afternoon has come while you weren't looking. The mud is thicker, darker, and the wind sharper. He mumbles something that might be, "Thank you." You mumble something back. It doesn't matter what. You step outside and feel the weight of the bread in your bag, small and dense, still faintly warm. You don't eat it yet. Not out of ritual. Just because your stomach is too tight to want anything. You walk away without looking back. You don't expect them to call after you. They never do. Payment is a strange thing in your world. Sometimes they hand you a coin like it burns their fingers. Sometimes they kiss your knuckles like you're a saint. But most often, they give you little or nothing. And you take it. Because you know what they don't say. That they didn't expect the girl to survive. That they already pictured the child buried before nightfall. That your presence turned something inevitable into something alive. That they're afraid of you now for the very same reason they begged you to come. You walk the long road home with the mud tugging at your boots and the wind biting through your shawl. And the bread, this small, crumbling loaf, feels heavier than any coin. It says what they couldn't, what they wouldn't, that you are needed, and never quite welcome, that you are called, and barely tolerated, that your work is sacred, and too close to death for comfort. You keep walking, because it's what you do. Payment or not, bread or not, promise or not, you go when they call, and when they don't. The door closes behind you with a sound softer than it should be. Wood against wood, no latch, no farewell. You step out into the grey afternoon, the wind curling around your ankles, carrying with it the scent of damp earth, ash, and something sour that you can't name. Your hands are cold again, though your palms still remember the heat of blood and salt and breath. You walk slowly, boots sinking into the deep ruts of the road, every step dragging the fatigue deeper into your knees. You don't look back. You never do. Looking back invites expectation, of thanks, of warmth, of something human. But that's not what waits behind you. You know it. You've known it for years. The birth is over. The child is alive. The mother, too. But survival doesn't soften the air. It makes it stranger, tighter, filled with a silence that wants to break into words but doesn't know how. And when it does, it's never gratitude. Not really. The first whisper comes before you've cleared the yard. A woman's voice, low and tight, sharp with something unsaid. You can't make out the words, but the rhythm is familiar. A question disguised as a warning. Another voice answers, equally hushed, like the sound of reeds in wind. You don't stop. You don't need to hear the words. You know them. They've followed you home after every birth. She stayed too long. She came too late. She said the baby would cry. Did it? She touched the girl too much. She didn't pray. You've heard it all. Not to your face. Never directly. But just loud enough for you to catch the shape of their doubt. That's how it works. While you're in the room, you are power. Or at least the vessel of it. But once you leave, once your back is turned, you become something else. a woman who knows too much, who sees too much, who touches blood and brings life, but sometimes doesn't, sometimes fails. And in that failure, even when it's not yours, they find fear. You keep your head down and your steps steady, the road curving back toward the center of the village. A child runs past you and then slows, watching you with wide eyes before ducking behind a post. Another follows, and you hear them whisper too, their voices bright with curiosity, but edged with the caution children learn early. You used to smile at them. Now you don't. Not because you're unkind, but because you've learned that even kindness can be turned against you. A smile becomes a sneer. A glance becomes a threat. You reach for the bread in your bag, but your hand stops halfway. The thought of eating anything makes your throat tighten. Your fingers curl instead around the cloth, pressing it, reminding yourself of its weight, its warmth, its reality. It's all you got from them. That and the voices. You pass a woman at her stoop. She crosses herself, not to bless you, but to protect herself. From you. You feel her eyes on your back as you walk past. And then the murmured words. Again, just low enough to miss. Just loud enough to wound. By the time you reach the edge of the village, the whispers have faded, swallowed by distance and wind. But their shape stays with you. Not clear, not sharp, but clinging. Like the scent of smoke in your shawl, or the blood beneath your nails. You've walked away from births where both mother and child survived and still been met with suspicion. You've walked away from deaths and heard laughter, not cruel but relieved that it didn't happen to them. You are not a healer. Not really. Not in their eyes. You are a risk, a reminder, a woman alone, unclean by trade, touched by blood and pain and the space between worlds. And that makes you necessary, but never safe, not to them. You walk slower now, your body aching, your head heavy with silence. The whispers follow, even when the people don't. They settle in your spine, your ribs, your skin. You carry them home. You carry them always, not as words, but as weight. The path you walk now is the same one you took just hours earlier. Same muddy ruts, same crooked fence posts, same wind curling low through the branches overhead. But it doesn't feel the same. Each step drags more than the last, as if the road itself is fighting your return. Your boots, already soaked through from the morning's journey, feel heavier now, clogged with mud that clings like regret. Your shoulders slope forward, not from pain, though there is plenty of that, but from the slow collapse of everything your body has held up until now. The sun hangs low, a dull smear behind clouds that never broke. No one speaks to you as you pass, no one waves, doors stay shut, curtains twitch. You walk through the silence like a swimmer through cold water, every motion resisted. The village is behind you, but it's not letting go. You feel it even now, the stairs, the breath held behind shutters, the fear that doesn't know where to go now that the child is breathing and the midwife is still alive. You try to remember if you always feel this way after a birth. You know the answer, but you ask the question anyway. Not every time. Some days you return lighter. Some days there's laughter, or at least something close to it. A dog barking. A woman's voice singing. A child chasing a chicken through the grass. But not today. Today the air presses down like a blanket left out in the rain, heavy and full of everything that wasn't said. The bread in your bag swings against your hip with each step. Half loaf, damp from the cloth, marked with the weight of obligation. You told yourself you wouldn't think about it, but you do. You picture the girl's face when the child cried, her lips twitching into something like relief, her eyes too tired to smile. You remember the sound of the mother's whisper. Thank you. Next time we'll do more. But even those words feel like stone now, worn smooth and cold by too many hands. You press your palms into your sides, grounding yourself in the rhythm of your stride. You don't stop. If you stop, you might not start again. The wind picks up near the tree line. It's not fierce, but steady, the kind that feels like it's pushing you back with each step. Not enough to knock you down, just enough to make you feel unwelcome. You lean forward slightly, adjusting your weight, the same way you do when walking through a stream. Your knees ache with each motion. You think of the cloth you left behind, stained beyond saving. You think of the sound the child made, sharp and sudden. You think of the silence that followed, the cold, the salt, the smell. You try to shake it off, but it lingers. It always does. Your fingers twitch at your sides, remembering the slick warmth of blood. You rub them against your skirt out of habit, though they've already been scrubbed raw. It doesn't help. The smell isn't in the skin. It's in the mind. You shift your shoulders under your shawl and keep walking. There's no one ahead of you, no one behind. But you feel as though you're moving through a crowd, each memory brushing past like a stranger's elbow. By the time your house comes into view, small, squat, leaning slightly to one side, the sky has begun to dim. Not dusk yet, but nearing. You pause at the edge of the clearing, your feet planted in the soft ground, your breath misting faintly before you. You don't move for a long moment. You just look at the crooked door, the sagging roof line, the shutter that never quite closes. It's not much. It's never been much, but it's yours, and it's waiting. You take one final step forward, then another, each one slow, deliberate. You don't rush. There's no point. Inside, the hearth is cold. The walls are still. No fire, no food. Just the quiet you left behind this morning. Thicker now, deeper, hungrier. You touch the latch, but you don't open it yet. You close your eyes and exhale, letting the weight of the walk, the whispers, the birth itself slide down your spine. It doesn't leave, but it settles. You press your hand against the door frame, then push it open. One more breath, one more silence, and then you go in, against the wind, against everything. It happens just as you reach the edge of the trees, where the path begins to slope toward the small rise behind your home. A sound, soft at first, like hooves on wet leaves. Then a voice, uncertain, calling your name. You stop, slowly, not out of surprise, but from the weight of knowing exactly what this is. It always happens this way, when your hands are tired, when your boots are soaked, when your back begs for warmth, and your stomach feels hollow. You turn and see a boy, no more than 12, panting, cheeks flushed with cold and urgency. He doesn't get close, just stands there, shifting from foot to foot, eyes darting between your face and the bundle on your hip. "Please," he says, breathless. "It's my sister." That's all. No details, no time for them. You nod once and adjust your bag on your shoulder. You don't ask how far, you don't ask how bad, you just follow, because that's what you do. Always. The road bends the opposite way from home. Of course it does. Your legs groan with every step now, not just from effort, but from the slow realization that rest was never really yours to begin with. The boy doesn't speak again. He glances over his shoulder every few paces, as if checking that you haven't disappeared or changed your mind. You never do. You follow him past the mill, through the narrow grove where the ground turns soft with moss and rot, and then to a small cottage set low in the hollow, smoke curling thinly from the chimney. A man stands out front, wringing a hat in both hands, his face pale and unreadable. Beside him, a girl, older than the boy, younger than you, sits on a stool, knees apart, skirts bunched, a smear of blood trailing down her calf. She doesn't cry. She doesn't even blink. You step toward her slowly, already knowing this one is different. Not labor, not yet, but something wrong. Something unfinished, something starting or stopping too soon, You kneel. You ask nothing. You reach for her hand. It's cold. Inside, the room smells of wet ash and sour cloth. There's no cradle, no pallet. Just a rough blanket laid out on the floor, already stained dark in the center. You set your bag down beside it and unfold it in silence. The girl lies back with your help, her breathing shallow, eyes fluttering. You lift her skirt gently and see the truth immediately. Not a full-term child, not even close. Blood pools beneath her hips, but the worst of it has passed already. You feel the small, still shape tucked against her thigh, half wrapped in what was meant to be a shift. The body is complete, but soft, unfinished, untouched by air. A lost child. You close your eyes only for a moment. You do not weep. You reach down and take the bundle into your hands, wrapping it properly, firmly, giving it weight it never had in life. The mother, if she is the mother, kneels beside you and asks nothing. The boy is outside now. The man paces. The girl breathes, but not deeply. You press a cloth between her legs and whisper something, a word, a name, anything soft. You clean what can be cleaned. You place the small form into a basket lined with wool. You fold the stained cloths into your bag, separate from the others. You sit beside the girl until her breath deepens and the color returns to her lips. No one in the room speaks of what just happened. There is no scream, no wail, no curse, only silence, like a snowfall that settles without being seen. When you rise to leave, the man offers you a handful of dried mushrooms and a small wooden charm, carved in the shape of a bird. You take both. You nod. You walk to the door. He thanks you. Quietly. Respectfully. The girl doesn't look up. You don't expect her to. You step back out into the cold, the wind colder now, the trees still. The sun is lower. The path is longer. You were almost home. But someone needed you. And you never say no. Not to pain. Not to death. Not to the blood that calls you back, again and again, when you have nothing left to give. You just keep walking. Because they always stop you. And you always stop too. The girl is too young. You knew it the moment you saw her face. Pale, drawn, tight with fear that hasn't had time to mature into pain. She sits propped against a pile of old wool blankets, legs trembling, her shift clinging to her belly in streaks of blood and water. Her mother hovers in the corner, saying nothing, eyes darting to the door as if someone stronger might appear. But there's no one else. Just you. Again. You crouch beside her and place your hand on her abdomen. The contractions are there, regular, hard, but the body is not ready. The cervix is barely open. The flesh resists you like a fist clenched in panic. You whisper her name. She doesn't answer. Her breath comes in gasps, too quick, too shallow. You press your palm flat against her belly and feel the child push forward with each pain, strong, determined, but the passage hasn't yielded. Not enough, not nearly enough. You try not to show your face. You nod, gently. It's early, you say, but it's close. You try every trick you know. Warm cloths, soothing herbs, gentle pressure along her lower spine. You whisper to the body beneath your hands, coaxing, pleading, willing it to soften. But it doesn't. It tightens, closes, resists. Hours pass. Her legs begin to cramp. Her fingers dig into the cloth beneath her. The moaning never rises into a scream. That's what haunts you most, the silence. Not peace, not calm, just silence, forced and unnatural. You remember women who howled, cursed, tore at their own hair, and you long for that now. Pain means the body is working. This stillness means something else, something worse. When the head finally presses low enough to touch, you feel it with the tips of your fingers and stop breathing. It's tilted. Wrong. You try again. It's lodged against bone, the soft swell of skull too wide for the narrow path. The girl bears down weakly, her whole frame shaking, and still nothing comes. You look at her face. Her mouth is open, eyes unfocused. The room is quiet but for the rustle of her breath. There is no cry. Not from her, not from you, not yet. You kneel between her legs for the 3rd hour, maybe 4th. You've stopped counting. The floor is wet now, not just from blood, but from sweat, from fluids, from time itself. You reach in again, hoping for change, any shift in angle, any sign that the child is moving. But he isn't. He's stuck, walled in. The skull bones are starting to overlap, a sign that the body is trying to compress, to find a way through. But the body around it won't let go. Not fully. Not enough. You press one hand to her belly and the other below, trying to guide him, rotate him. Something. She whimpers once, low and animal. Her mother stirs, moves to her side, takes her hand. Still, no one cries. You know what comes next if nothing changes. You've seen it. You've watched the color drain from lips and never return. You've watched shoulders lock, cords tear, wombs collapse from exhaustion. You press harder now, firm enough to bruise, and whisper again, "You have to push, harder, now!" But the girl only stares at you, wide-eyed, as if she's already left, and her body just forgot to follow. You feel something shift inside you, not muscle, not bone, but resolve. The part that lets you hope, lets you believe you can always do something. It slips. You close your eyes for a second and open them again. Still no sound. Still no scream. Still no movement. You don't stop. You never do. But this one is going worse. Worse than the last. Worse than you thought it could. You reach for the warm oil, the twine, the salt. You brace your feet against the earth and steady your hands. The room feels too quiet now, like breath held too long. You press again. You adjust her legs. You speak her name. And you pray, not to saints, not to spirits, but to the flesh itself, to open, to release, to let this child be born before the body gives out completely. You hear the wind outside the cottage, the cry of a crow, a door slamming far away. But in here, nothing. No cry, no release, no end yet. Just a labor that stretches on and on. Just a head that won't turn. And a silence that wraps around you like a rope, tightening with every moment that passes. You feel it before you see it. The way the air changes, the way the girl's limbs go slack all at once. Not the soft surrender of sleep, but the sudden drop of something that won't return. Your hand is still inside her, searching for the head that will not turn, the child that will not come, and then she lets go. Her body stops pushing. Her breath stutters once, catches in her throat like a trapped bird. And then nothing. Not silence, but the absence of effort. You call her name, sharply now, louder than you mean to, but there's no response. Her eyes, half-lidded for hours, slide shut like someone finished with looking. The mother screams, a sound that breaks the walls. You keep your hands where they are. You press down on her belly. You try to will motion where none remains. But the warmth under your palms has changed. It's not life anymore. It's only heat, slipping away. You whisper something. Anything. But she's already gone. Not far, maybe. But far enough. You should stop. You know that. But you don't. You keep working, moving through the steps you were taught, the ones etched into your bones after all these years. You shift the girl's legs. You press against her stomach. You adjust the angle of your wrist, trying again to find the child. Your breath is shallow, your jaw clenched. The room is filled with noise now. The mother sobbing, the boy shouting outside for someone, anyone, the creak of the walls as wind presses against them. But none of it matters. You are somewhere deeper, somewhere smaller. The child is still inside, and still. No movement, no resistance, No urgency. You guide what you can. You pull when pulling becomes the only option. You know how this goes. You've done it before, but it doesn't get easier. The child slips free. Too small, too quiet, too late. You hold it in both hands, wrap it in the cloth already waiting for such a moment, and place it gently on the floor beside the body that no longer holds it. The mother collapses beside her daughter, hands shaking, mouth open in a soundless wail. You don't speak. There is nothing to say. You begin to clean. Not because you're cold, not because you're unmoved, but because something must be done. You wipe the girl's legs. You press cloths between her thighs, though the blood no longer flows fast. You cover her with a blanket. You close her eyes. You move with practiced hands, not because it helps, but because it gives your hands something to do. The child lies beside her now, wrapped tight, a small bundle of what might have been. You do not unwrap it. You do not try to make it look like something else. You let it stay as it is, silent, motionless, final. The boy enters the room. Finally, face pale, jaw tight. He sees his sister. He sees the mother on the floor. He sees you. And he doesn't speak. You don't expect him to. You nod toward the hearth, ask for water. He moves to obey, too stunned to resist. You turn back and wipe your hands. The blood is already drying. You stay longer than you should. You help them prepare the bodies. You wash what you can. You tell the mother what to expect. The stiffness, the color, the cold. You speak in low tones. You do not cry. Not here. Not now. When it is done, you gather your things. The cloths are soaked. The herbs untouched. Your knees ache so badly you aren't sure they'll hold you when you stand. You rise anyway. The boy opens the door. The wind rushes in. You step into it like someone entering punishment. Behind you, a house full of pain, sharp, fresh, unfinished. Ahead of you, the road you've already walked twice today. Your hands shake as you tie your shawl. You taste salt in your mouth, but you haven't eaten. You take one last look back, and then you leave. You walk slowly, heavily. There is no fire waiting for you, no voice, no promise, only silence, only the weight of what didn't survive, and the sound of your own breath, steady, stubborn, still yours. For now, it starts before you even reach the path. The door doesn't close behind you. It slams, not from wind, but from hands, the kind that don't shake anymore because all the fear has turned to something harder. The mother doesn't follow you, but her voice does. Not loud, not screaming, but sharp, clipped, steady, like someone reading a verdict. You came too late. 3 words, but they land like stones. You stop walking for a second, just a second, the words settling on your shoulders the same way grief does, unexpected in its weight, but deeply familiar. You've heard it before. You will hear it again. You take another step. You waited too long. Another. You didn't know what you were doing. You close your eyes. Not because it hurts. Not yet. But because that's the only way to keep your mouth shut. If you speak now, you won't be able to stop. And no one wants to hear your side. Not now. Not ever. You move slowly. Your steps careful. Deliberate. Like you're walking across ice that hasn't decided whether to crack. You pass a group near the well. 2 women and a man. The boy must have run ahead, or maybe the story did. Their heads turn toward you as one. One woman crosses herself, the other just stares. The man mutters something to no one in particular. You don't catch the words, but you catch the tone. You always do. You keep your eyes on the ground. Your boots are caked in dried blood and straw. Your shawl still smells like smoke and fear. The wind picks up, lifting the edge of your skirt, and for a moment you wonder if it would be easier to lie down where you stand. Just let it take you. Let it blow away everything that clings. But the wind isn't that kind. And neither are they. You keep walking. the words follow. Not just the ones said aloud, but the ones that simmer just beneath every glance. She didn't save her. She touched something she shouldn't. She's cursed. She's a witch. They never say it to your face. Not right away. It starts as murmurs, passed from mouth to ear like coals, burning a little more with each telling. A child didn't cry soon enough? You didn't cut the cord right? A mother bled too long? You used the wrong herbs. A baby was born too early? You must have looked at her wrong. Or worse, you knew it would happen. You brought it on. You made it happen. You enter houses in the dark. You carry blood under your nails. You speak to pain like it's something you can reason with. That's enough to damn you. You've had your door marked before. A bundle of straw, a line of salt, a dead bird. You've seen what happens when fear has no clear place to go. It comes for the one who stayed too long, the one who touched too much, the one who didn't cry when the mother died, the one who still breathed when the baby didn't. That one is you. You reach your door. Your hands shake as you lift the latch. Inside, it's quiet. The air is cold. The fire never got built. You drop your bag onto the stool and stand there for a long time, just listening. The silence feels thick, like something you have to wade through. You pull off your shawl. You sit down. You don't cry. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because there's nothing left in you to push the tears out. You say her name once. The girl who didn't make it. Then the child's name, if they even gave him one. You whisper both into the air like a breath you've been holding too long. Then you lean forward, place your head in your hands, and stay like that. For a while. Long enough for the wind to die down. Long enough for the whispers to travel. Long enough for someone to pass by your door and not knock. Tomorrow someone might come. Or they might not. But if they do, it won't be with thanks. It will be with blame. It always is. You'll answer the knock. You always do. Even if all they bring is fire. You hear your name again before you're halfway out of the village. It's not said in grief this time. It's said with something sharper, colder. The kind of voice people use when they're not calling for you, but calling you out. You turn your head slightly, just enough to see where it came from. The mother stands in the doorway, no longer weeping. Her face is dry, but her eyes burn. Behind her, shadows gather. Neighbors, friends, maybe even strangers, drawn by the smell of death and the thrill of blame. You pause, but only for a breath. They expect a response. They want you to justify yourself, to explain what you did and didn't do, what went wrong and why it wasn't your fault. But you've learned this lesson too many times. Explanations don't fix anything. They don't ease grief. They don't change what happened. And worst of all, they're not even meant to be heard. They're meant to be swallowed, twisted, spit back at you as more evidence of guilt. So you say nothing. You nod once, if only to acknowledge the sound of your name, and then you turn away. Your legs are heavier now, but you keep moving. Each step is a small betrayal, not of them, but of yourself. You want to stop. You want to turn around and tell them everything. That you were called too late, that the child was stuck, that the girl's body wasn't ready, that the womb tore like cloth, and that by the time you held the baby it was already cooling. You want to tell them how long you stayed, how hard you tried, how you whispered into the blood-soaked straw even after the girl had stopped breathing. You want to tell them that your hands still ache, that your knees are raw, that the silence you carry now is not peace, but the kind that presses against your chest when you lie awake. But you don't say any of it, because none of it matters. They've made their decision. You were there, and the girl died. You were there, and the child didn't cry. You were there, and that's enough. You've seen it happen before. You know how quickly sorrow turns to suspicion, and suspicion to accusation. A voice calls after you again. Louder now, with less restraint. You should have done more. Then another. You knew it wouldn't end well. The wind carries the words like dust, scattering them across the path ahead of you. Still, you say nothing. Not because you're cold, but because silence is the only defense you have left. If you speak, they'll twist your words. If you shout, you'll give them reason. If you weep, they'll say it's guilt. So you walk, head low, shawl tight, breath held shallow. The road is familiar, but it feels different now. Narrower, darker, as if the very ground has turned against you. The weight of their stares trails you long after you've left the houses behind. Even when you're out of sight, you can feel their eyes. Like smoke, like fog, like fingers on your back. When you reach the bend near the old tree, you finally stop. Just for a moment, you rest your hand against the bark and let your forehead touch the trunk, cold and solid. You breathe in once, deep and shaky. Then you let it out. Not a sob, not a sigh. Just a breath that says, you are still here, still walking, still carrying what no one else will. You don't defend yourself. You don't return to explain. You don't ask for understanding. Because you know there are no words for what you saw. No words that will bring her back. No words that will make them see you as anything but the woman who walked in and didn't save her. So you keep walking, quiet, steady, toward the house that waits, toward the silence that comes after blame. You don't look back. You don't need to. You already know what you'd see. And more than that, you know what it would cost you. And you've paid enough. The cottage appears through the trees like it always does, low, crooked, leaning slightly toward the east where the ground gave way one spring and never quite came back. The roof is patched with moss and old thatch. The door hangs uneven on its hinges. Smoke doesn't rise from the chimney. Of course it doesn't. You didn't light anything this morning. You hadn't expected to be gone this long, or maybe you had. Either way, the place is cold. You step closer, boots heavy with caked mud and things you won't name. The wind picks up behind you, tugging at your shawl, lifting the hem of your skirt like fingers trying to pull you back. But there's nowhere else to go. You push the door open. It groans the same way it always does. Not in welcome, not in warning, just in habit. You step inside. You don't exhale. There's no relief. Just the scent of your own silence settling back around you like dust. The room is as you left it. A single bed tucked into the far wall, a stool, a table, the hearth, long cold, a cracked basin by the window, the bundle of rags you didn't get to hang. The walls close in gently, not suffocating, but small in a way that reminds you just how little you have. You drop your bag onto the stool and sit beside it, your knees complaining with the motion. Your hands rest in your lap, raw and empty. You don't remove your shawl. The air inside is colder than the air outside. You don't light the fire. Not yet. You don't eat. The bread from earlier is still in your bag, wrapped in cloth, slightly flattened from the road and the weight of your guilt. You glance at it, then look away. Hunger isn't the most pressing thing. Neither is warmth. You sit still, letting the cold seep in. Not because you want to suffer. You've had enough of that. But because it feels honest. The body wants to match the inside. And the inside is stone. This house doesn't protect you. It never did. It's a place to lie down when your feet stop working. A place to scrub your hands when they're stained too dark for sleep. A place to wake up in, barely, and start the whole thing again. The walls keep the wind out most nights. The roof drips only when the rain lasts longer than 3 days. The floor is uneven, but you've memorized where not to step. You used to think of it as shelter. Now it feels more like a pause, a holding place, somewhere to exist between calls, between knocks, between names whispered in panic. You run your finger along the edge of the table and feel the grain under your skin. A splinter catches, tiny but sharp. You welcome it. At least it's real At least it's yours. You pull your hand back and press the spot with your thumb. The sting lingers. It's better than the quiet. You lean back and close your eyes, just for a moment. The image returns instantly. Her face, the stillness, the silence that followed. You open your eyes again. You thought maybe being home would create distance. It doesn't. There is no boundary between outside and inside, not really. The grief follows, the doubt, the voices. Even now you can still feel them clinging to your shawl, trailing behind your boots, hiding in the folds of your skirt. You could scrub the floor, boil water, repack your bag. You could try to reclaim some rhythm, some small imitation of peace. But not tonight. Tonight you just sit. In four walls that don't hold you, by a stove that doesn't warm you, with your hands in your lap and your heart somewhere on the floor. You reached home again. That's all. It's not comfort. It's not escape. It's just the place where the silence finally gets louder than everything else. You kneel beside the basin and pour the little water you have into it. It's cold, colder than you remembered, and your fingers hesitate just above the surface. Then you plunge them in. The sting is immediate, as if your skin remembers more than you do. The basin is cracked, like everything else here, but it holds enough. Enough to pretend. You reach for the salt in its cloth pouch and pour a small mound into your palm. Then you begin to scrub, not gently, not like you're cleaning, like you're trying to erase. You drag the grains over your knuckles, into the creases of your fingers, under your nails where blood still lingers. The salt bites. You push harder. Red seeps back into the water. You keep going. It's not pain you want, not relief either, just distance. And the sound, rough skin on stone basin, it almost drowns out the echo in your head. You scrub until your hands are raw again, the kind of raw that doesn't bleed but feels like it should. You press your palms together and hold them close to your chest, as if there's something fragile now, something that needs warmth. But there's nothing warm in you tonight, not even your breath. You blow on your fingers anyway, then tuck them under your arms, under your shawl, against your ribs. It helps. Barely. The ache is still there, dull and stubborn. Not just in your hands, in your spine, your neck, your shoulders. The kind of ache that seeps into the bones and stays there long after the day is done. You sit back on your heels and look down at the water. It's cloudy now, faintly pink. Your reflection stares up at you, blurry, unfamiliar. You splash it once, then again, until nothing stares back. You reach for the cloth beside the basin and dry your hands, but the damp clings. The salt stays in the creases. The smell of blood hides under your nails. And no matter how many times you rub your skin, you can't make it feel clean. Not really. You think of the women who whispered today. You think of the mother who didn't survive, of the child who never cried, of the house that smelled like sweat and fire and endings. You press your fingers into your temples and try not to see it. But it's there, in the folds of your memory, as solid as the wood beneath your knees. You want to scream. You don't. You want to sleep. You won't. Instead, you stand, slowly, hands trembling slightly from cold, from exhaustion, from everything else you won't name. You fold the cloth, rinse the basin, wipe the rim. Ritual, not resolution. The hearth remains dark. You should light it. You should at least try to push back the cold that's settling in your joints, but the thought of fire feels too loud, too bright, too much. So you sit again. On the stool this time, you curl your hands into fists and press them against your thighs. The salt burns. You don't flinch. Instead, you stare at the door, half expecting another knock, half hoping there won't be one. You're not sure which would be worse. The silence thickens. Not comforting, just full. Full of what didn't work, of what you couldn't do, of the things still under your skin. You try to wash it away. You always try. But you know by now, some things cling, some things stain, and some things, no matter how hard you scrub, never really leave. You sit in silence, elbows on the rough wooden table, hands cradling your jaw. The room is dim now, and the shadows don't wait for candlelight. They gather on their own. Across from you lies a sliver of empty parchment. Not yours. You found it once, used to wrap herbs. You never wrote on it. There's no ink, no quill. And even if there were, you wouldn't reach for them. You were never taught letters. Not properly. Just enough to recognize the saints' names, to trace charms on door frames with your finger, to guess what the village priest might say. But nothing here is written. Not the names of the mothers, not the children, not the nights you stayed too long, not the ones where you left too early. Everything is in your head, and your head is tired. You remember some things clearly. The child who came feet first and lived. The one whose cry never came, though the birth was easy. The woman who bled through 3 cloths and then just stopped. You remember the smells, the angles of swollen bellies, the colors of bruising. You remember the things that scared you most. Silence when there should have been screaming. Movement when there should have been stillness. But memory phrase, you feel it. Names blur. Details vanish. You grasp at the faces you once saw so clearly, and they slide away, soft and formless like steam from a bowl. You wonder what else you've forgotten. What small thing might have mattered to someone and is now gone because you didn't tie it down in words. You think about the men, the priests, the scribes, the physicians in cities you'll never see. They write, they preserve. Their failures become lessons. Yours become whispers. You have no scrolls, no records. Your knowledge is held in a body that aches more each year. It sits in your spine, your hands, the bend of your knees. You've passed some of it to others, girls who watched quietly, asked careful questions, but even they won't remember everything. And if one day no one asks, then it will all fade with you. That thought tightens your throat. Not out of pride, but out of a deeper fear, that everything you've carried and survived and feared and endured might vanish without noise. That the pain you've learned to walk with will leave no trace behind. So you sit, staring at that piece of parchment you'll never use, and wonder if silence was always meant for you. You speak with hands, with eyes, with steady breath and quiet words. You live through risk, through grief, through cold mornings and long, wet walks. But none of it is recorded. And maybe that's why it keeps repeating. Maybe that's why they still look at you like a mystery, like a threat, or a tool, or a woman to fear but never understand. You let the thought pass, like steam again, curling into the beams of your low ceiling. No, you won't write anything down tonight. You can't. You don't. But tomorrow, if someone comes, if another child is ready or not ready, you'll carry what you know, in your hands, in your eyes, in the quiet places that paper can't reach. You don't move when you first hear it. A soft knock. Not urgent, not frantic. Just steady. 3 taps. Then silence. For a moment you pretend you didn't hear it, the way a child pretends not to see something frightening in the dark. But you did. Of course you did. It's not the wind, not a neighbor with bread, not a merchant passing through. No one knocks on your door after dusk unless they want something you've already given too much of. You close your eyes, hoping, just for the space of a breath, that the knock was for someone else. That another midwife moved in, someone younger, someone with better hands, someone who hasn't lost as many as you have. But when the second knock comes, a little firmer this time, you know it's not for anyone else. They've come for you. Again. You rise slowly, the bones in your knees complaining as you push away from the table. You don't reach for your shawl right away. You just stand there, hands at your sides, listening to the stillness. The candle by the hearth trembles. Not from wind, from you. You think about not opening the door, just staying inside, pretending this time you were asleep or already gone. But you never do that. You never have. It's not in you. And if you're honest, brutally, painfully honest, you know you'd go even if they hadn't knocked. Because the thought of someone suffering without help is worse than the thought of suffering again yourself. So you pick up your satchel, though you haven't restocked it since earlier. There's still dried blood on your sleeve from the second woman. You think about changing, then don't. There's no time. There never is. When you lift the latch and open the door, the face that greets you isn't familiar. A boy, maybe 13, maybe younger. His eyes are wide, his hands clenched into fists that shake. He doesn't speak at first, just looks at you like you're the only thing standing between him and something too big to understand. You've seen that look before, on older men, on broken husbands, on weeping fathers. The look that says, "She's dying." Or worse, she's already gone. You don't ask questions. You just step past him into the dark. The road is familiar by now, though you still stumble. You can feel the mud pulling at your feet again, the night air seeping through every seam of your clothing. Your hands are already cold. They always are. As you walk, the boy beside you begins to speak in halting fragments. It's his sister, not his wife. Too young for that. She's been in pain since midday, but their father didn't want to bother you. He thought it would pass. It didn't. Now she's screaming. Or was. Then she stopped. The boy doesn't say more. He doesn't have to. You've heard this story before. It's always the same in its fear. Always the same in its lateness. You feel your steps getting heavier, though your pace doesn't slow. You grip the satchel tighter, hoping what little remains inside will be enough. You know it won't be. But you go anyway. Not because you believe you'll save her, but because if you don't go, no one will. You reach the house, a smaller one this time. No candles in the window, no voices, just the creak of the door as it opens to let you in. You're not welcomed. You're not thanked. You're simply absorbed into the space like a shadow. Inside, the air smells of iron and sweat and something sour underneath. A woman lies on a low pallet, her limbs twisted in the way of someone who's been fighting pain too long. Her eyes are closed. The room is still, and all at once, you are the only one who moves. You kneel again. You press fingers to skin that shouldn't be that cold. You whisper words you don't believe in anymore, because this is the third time today, and you're not sure you have anything left to give. But you give it anyway, because someone knocked, and because it was you they came for. Again, your feet hurt, not in the sharp way they used to when you were younger. Blisters from new boots, scrapes from thorns. No, this pain is older, slower, deeper. It's in the bones now, in the ankles, the knees, the hips. It's the kind of ache that has no name, no edge, just a constant presence that grows heavier with every step. And yet you keep walking. You're not even sure when you agreed. You didn't nod. You didn't speak. The words weren't needed. They knocked. You opened. And now your body is moving again, without the luxury of thought, without resistance. Not because you want to, not because you believe you can help, but because saying no has never been an option. Not once, not for people like you. You tell yourself you'll rest later, that maybe after this one, just this one more, you'll sleep, that they won't come tomorrow, that someone else will learn the ways, that someone younger will appear like a miracle and take it all from your hands. But you know better. There is no one else. There never has been. Every time a new girl is born, they say she might be the next. Every time someone heals a scratch with honey or knows the names of 2 herbs, they whisper hope. But when the bleeding starts, When the child is stuck, when the mother screams or grows still, they come to you. Always you. And you never say no. Because no isn't safe. No means death. And that, more than anything, is something you cannot allow yourself to choose. The world doesn't care that your joints burn, or that your eyes blur, or that your hands are beginning to shake in ways they didn't used to. The world doesn't stop because you're tired. Tiredness isn't rare here. It's constant, like the cold, like the damp, like the stairs. You've lived your whole life inside tiredness. You've walked through hunger, sickness, loss. You've pulled children into breath and watched them leave again, sometimes in the same hour. You've carried bodies. You've buried blood-soaked cloth. You've wiped tears from faces that forgot how to cry. So no, pain is not a reason. Exhaustion is not a reason. Fear is not a reason. You go, because you must, because someone asked, and asking is the only strength some people have left. The light is thinner now. The wind cuts sharper. Your shoulders are tense from the cold, and your fingers barely close around the worn strap of your bag. You don't remember the names of all the children you've touched. You don't remember the last time you slept a full night. You don't remember the last time you were the one who needed help. You've forgotten how it feels to receive instead of give. And in some twisted part of you, you know that if someone offered to take your place, just for a night, just for a single labor, you'd still say no. Not because you want this, not because you're proud, but because no one else knows how. And you can't let them try and fail. You've seen what failure looks like. It doesn't leave, it stays. In the walls, in the floorboards, in the eyes of the father who carries 2 bodies to the hill at dawn. So yes, you go. You say yes because your body has said yes so many times, it no longer knows how to say anything else. You say yes with your feet, with your shoulders, with your silence. You say yes because it is the only answer that stands between life and death. And even if your hands fumble, even if your knees buckle, even if your breath is shallow and your mind drifts, you will keep walking. You will kneel again. You will whisper again. You will fight again. Because it's not about belief anymore. Not about hope. Not about faith. It's about habit. About duty. About the cruel, quiet love that keeps you in motion long after everything inside you has begged to stop. The door shuts behind you with no sound. It doesn't creak tonight. It doesn't groan beneath your hand. It just closes, like the end of a thought, like a stone dropped into water. The house is dark. No fire burns. No light flickers. The hearth is cold. The corners are colder. You don't look around. You don't take off your cloak. You don't untie your boots. You don't even breathe the way you should. The weight of the hours presses against your ribs and pulls your head downward, toward the floor, toward the place where sleep lives. Not the gentle kind, but the heavy kind, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. Your fingers still stink of birth. Your skirt is crusted with salt, mud, and something else. It doesn't matter what. There is no part of you that's clean. Not now. Not tonight. You don't light a candle. You don't reach for water. You don't change into anything warmer. You don't eat the crust on the table. You don't listen for mice in the walls or wind in the beams. All of those things belong to someone still awake. But you are not. Not fully. Not really. You are an outline of yourself. You are the absence of noise. You are breath without shape. Your limbs remember the weight of 2 deaths and 1 life, all pressed into the curve of your spine. Your jaw is clenched. You don't remember closing it. Your eyelids feel swollen, like they've wept, though you didn't cry. Not tonight. There was no time. There is never time. And now even time has abandoned you, left you on this floor. Or is it a bed? You don't know anymore. You don't care. Sleep comes like it always does, without warmth, without safety, without dreams. It's not a comfort. It's not a refuge. It's not a reward for a day survived. It's something else, something older, something more indifferent. You don't fall into it. You collapse. You sink. You vanish. There is no ritual, no preparation, no prayer, no thoughts of the dead, no memories of the living, no questions about tomorrow. Your body folds in on itself, breath slows, muscles go slack. But you're not resting. Not in the way others mean it. Not in the way they talk about sleep beside a fire, or in a lover's arms, or after a feast. No, this is closer to something colder. Closer to the way animals curl beneath snow and don't wake again. Closer to stone. Closer to earth. And maybe, in that last flicker before nothing, your mind tries to speak. It tries to say one more thing. Maybe it tries to wonder what tomorrow will bring. Another cry, another knock, another life in your hands. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe even that small flame is gone, extinguished beneath the weight of the day, buried under the wet cloth and the red hands and the cold words. You don't know. You won't know. Not until the next time you open your eyes and find that you're still here, still breathing, still expected. But that's not now. Now there is only this heavy, blank fall into the dark, where no one calls your name and no one waits. A sleep that doesn't cradle, a sleep that doesn't heal, a sleep that feels like death, and sometimes you wonder if it is. You made it to the end, quietly, patiently, without turning away. Maybe that's all that matters. These weren't just stories. They were echoes of hands that bled without reward, of women who carried life and death in the same breath, of lives spent in the margins, unrecorded, unseen, but not unlived. If you're still here, then perhaps a small part of you stood beside her, walked with her, watched with her, and maybe, just maybe, you'll carry her silence with you for a little while longer.